And welcome to the Zonal Weakness brought to you by Ghana Football Fantasy, powered by Fantasy Football Scout. And finally, we are at the end of the season. And of course, this is the gimmick 38 that we are going to now discuss about. But yeah, time just flew and we have now finally come to an end. Another season coming to an end. And we are quite happy about the fact that we managed to produce all the contents throughout the year and throughout the season. Of course, sometimes we did miss, but at least we tried to be as consistent as possible. But yeah, it's a different feeling, to be honest. In one way that the season is coming to an end, so it's you basically don't have FPL anymore. But again, there is also a sense of relaxation that's slowly starting to set in because we've been producing content on a regular basis, but now it's time to go and get a break and be recharged and be back for the next season again. But yeah, we are good and happy to be back for Gaming 38, and of course this is the Zonal Weakness. So let's get straight away without much delay. And as you know, as I've already mentioned, Gaming 38, this is the Zonal Weakness. And if you haven't followed or liked or subscribed throughout the season after watching this, I would like to just make one final request. Please do follow and like and subscribe to our channels on Facebook, on X, and also on YouTube, because we are producing regular content for the last 6 years since now. And yeah, we are the only one in Bangladesh that's kind of producing regular content with informed data. So yeah, we would be happy to have you follow us, and and any support that you show us, it's sincerely appreciated. Right. And of course, can't really end the season without thanking Fantasy Football Scout for being supportive and, of course, including us in the network, Fantasy Football Scout network. And, all the data that you get to see are actually taken from there. And we kind of appreciate all the support that we receive from Fantasy Football Scout. So thank you so much. Yeah, if you're interested, it's a very useful tool. And if you find it interesting, and if you like the zonal data, that's all there. All the teams are there. So you can take it with using this code and you get a 5% discount, obviously. And of course, if you are having issues, do join us next season and we'll be able to support you with getting the logins and also the payments for those Bangladeshis who cannot make the payment abroad. Yeah. All right, let's move on to straight away to the show. And this is the first slide. And the first match is, of course, it's Bournemouth versus Nottingham Forest. Now, Bournemouth obviously has a little bit left to play because they are still competing for. The. Just a second, sorry, I'm getting some sort of external noise here. Yeah, sorry for that. There's a little bit of noise coming from the side, so we had to really make sure that there is no external noise coming in. Apologies for that. But yeah, coming back to Bournemouth, and of course they have something to play against Nottingham Forest, still competing for the top 6. And obviously we can see Ivan Lisson and Krupi playing down the center. That's where Nottingham seems to be showing weaknesses. And they have conceded 26 chances and, of course, ranked 4th. And, of course, in the left flank is where Nottingham Forest seems to be the weakest, being the worst team. And that's where Ryan and 𝐴𝐸 is going to play. But just before I go into all the details with other teams as well, I'd just like to remind all the audience who are watching that, we are not going to predict the players because this is the last game week. So there could be a lot of rotations and there could be a lot of changes and there could be a lot of goals. So we don't know who is going to start and who's going to be left behind. What I would ask you looking at this is make the best possible informed decision that you can. But I would, if you are really trying to look at the zonal data, that I would suggest you focus on the zone rather than the players itself. So that would be very important because we can't really predict the changes that are going to be made ahead of the 38. So just keeping that in mind. So yeah, Ryan and 𝐴𝐸, both of them could do very well this particular game week with left flank, and of course Ryan has been doing quite well consistently over the last couple of weeks. So that's something. Next match is obviously Tottenham versus Everton, and Tottenham are still fighting the relegation, and this could be a match that could seal their faith or keep their hopes and survival still intact in the Premier League, and they could again play in the Premier League, but you never know. And it's against a tough opponent against Everton, but again, where Everton seems to be showing weaknesses is down the right flank. That's where Tel and Udogie is going to occupy with 28 chances conceded down that flank. And of course, they're the weakest side. Then from the center, of course, again, Everton seems to be quite weak, conceding 21 chances over the last 6-game week. And of course, they're ranked 5th worst, so Richarlison and Gallagher is going to occupy that particular position. Headed chances is again down the center. That's where, again, Everton seems to be quite weak. With 20 headed chances conceded, Richarlison could do well. And in terms of the crosses as well from the right flank, particularly Tel and Udogie could also put themselves in the score sheet in terms of an assist coming from them and a cross that might lead to a goal. So, yeah, there's a lot to play for Tottenham. So we could expect this match to be competitive. Sunderland versus Chelsea. And of course, Chelsea is another team that's still kind of keeping their hopes alive. Their hopes are still alive in terms of Europe, so they could still compete. And Sunderland is a good opponent to face on the game week 38. 24 chances conceded by Sunderland again down the right flank. They're ranked 3rd, where Enzo and Cucurella is going to occupy. And of course, Neto and A. Santos could do well in terms of 21 chances considered and 6, they're ranked 6th. So that's something that João Pedro, I'm not quite sure in terms of the headed chances conceded, but you never know. The last game week seems to bring a lot out of the players, especially if there's something left to play. Leeds and West Ham. Now, the Leeds are already on the beach, to be honest, so there's nothing much to play for them. West Ham, on the other hand, has a lot to play because they are relegation. Their survival is at stake. They're fighting the relegation battle, so it could be them or Tottenham who could actually slip. So this match is particularly very important. Bowen could do well along with Wan-Bissaka occupying that left flank of Leeds. And yeah, down that particular flank is where Leeds have shown a lot of weaknesses with 25 chances conceded and they're ranked 2nd worst. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I see Bowen again in the score sheet. And, given the fact that this is a relegation battle and the last match that would seal their fate, whether they will be future Premier League club or not. I think, yeah, Bowen could rise up in the occasion and do well. Brentford and Liverpool. Obviously, Liverpool have already qualified for the Champions League, so there's nothing much to play for them. But again, this being the Salah's last match, so this could be an important match. And of course, they could all show up and still do well against Brentford. Only Gakpo, Brentford seems to showing weaknesses down the center with 32 chances considered on the worst side. So Gakpo and Szoboszlai are a good option in this particular fixture. Brentford, on the other hand, has a little bit left to play, particularly because they're still competing for Europe. And yeah, Liverpool seems to be quite weak down the right flank with 22 chances considered and ranked 4th. So Shada and Jensen could do well. Odango, who scored a couple of goals in the previous game week, could again do well this week as well, with the left flank of Liverpool being weak, 22 chances conceded, ranked 5th worst. So yeah, Coyote and Odango could also do well. So it's going to be the 2 wings that's going to really occupy and probably exploit Liverpool's weaknesses. Manchester United versus Brighton. Nothing much really for Manchester United in this game except Casemiro's last match probably. So this is it for Casemiro. And of course, he's done extremely well. But we are not here to discuss about Manchester United. We are discussing about Brighton. Brighton still has a lot to play with. Europe dream still alive, and they could still do it. So Manchester United weaknesses particularly lies in the center with 29 chances conceded down the center with ranked 3rd. So this is where Wilbeck and Hinchelwood, who's been showing good form recently over the last couple of weeks, would actually do well as well. Fulham and Newcastle, really nothing much really. There's a lot of factors that needs to be taken into consideration before Newcastle could do something about in terms of the Europe chances, but I'm not really going to go into all the details. I think what's really important is for Fulham and Newcastle, there's nothing much. So there's 2 teams most likely to be on the beach, and there's not going to be much outcome. But again, this game could go anyway. You never know. Um, but obviously, what the zonal is suggesting is that we see Fulham's weakness down the right flank with 25 chances considered, ranked second. This is where Ramsey and Hall could play. So, yeah, now of course, Hall is also being rumored to be part of a transfer to Manchester United as well. That's what we are hearing, but again, nothing confirmed. Moving on to the next slide, and it's Aston Villa versus Manchester City. Now, Manchester City have lost the Premier League already, so they have ranked second, so there's no way they can win the Premier League. But again, this is the last match for Pep Guardiola, who's been here in charge of Manchester City over the last 10 years, winning 20 trophies, I think, in total, if I get the numbers correct, but at least won several Premier League, at least 6. So this could be a last goodbye match for from the players to provide and gift Pep Guardiola. So I would expect still a lot of professionalism coming from City. So I wouldn't expect a lot of rotation either. So the right flank of Aston Villa would be quite interesting, given that 21 chances have been considered on that flank, and they're ranked fifth, and Doku and O'Reilly. But of course, Aston Villa is now the Europa champions, so they are a little bit tired, recently just played. So that's something that could be exploited as well. So yeah. Now moving on, Crystal Palace and Arsenal have already been crowned the Premier League champions for after 22 years. So congratulations to all the Arsenal fans watching. And now this is a match that I would expect a lot of rotation, particularly that they have 4 days before the Champions League final. So a lot of players could be rested now that the Premier League has been secured. So that's something that could be taken into account. And I would expect, and this is also an away match, so I would expect a little bit of rotation in this particular match. But again, you never know. But yeah, there is not really nothing standing out except the headed considered where Gabriel could do well. But I think by now we have already come to the end of the season. So we already know Gabriel is a threat in the aerial balls. Wolves and Burnley, yeah, both of them relegated, but Fleming, who's been doing well. So if you have a wildcard pick that you really want to take based on the zonal data, I think Fleming would be one of my players that I would go to. 19 chances conceded down the center by Wolves and ranked 6th. So Fleming could really do well. Tuchuan and Walker, I'm not really going to focus much, but again, 25 chances considered, ranked 2nd. This could be more of a match for upcoming championship competition and rivalry, but nothing much in terms of the Premier League. But again, if you're really looking for a wildcard option, Fleming is the one that I would suggest, given his recent form and his performances as well, and that this match is against also Wolves. Wolves on the other side, Burnley's weakness seems to be down the center and of course down the left flank. So that's something we need to take into consideration. So yeah, for Burnley's point of view, I think it's Armstrong and Mane who could do well. 30 chances considered down the center, ranked 2nd. And of course, Gomez and Masquera could also do well with 25 chances considered down the left flank and are ranked 2nd. For West Ham and Leeds, we've already discussed West Ham assets, but now we are focusing a little bit more on Leeds. I wouldn't really focus much because Leeds have already secured their position in the Premier League. They have nothing much to really play except to just compete. So I'm not really going to suggest any of the players, but yeah, as you can see, Calvert-Lewin could do well in terms of scoring his goal and continuing his form ahead. So with 17 chances, headed chances considered by West Ham and are ranked 3rd. So that's something that we can watch out for. And yeah, I think that's that for the zonal. Let's move into the next one, which is the team of the week for Game Week 38. And our final team of the week for this season, as you can rightly see, Welbeck, Krupi, and Bowen are already there. And I think we have already discussed as to why. Bowen is competing because of the relegation. Welbeck has Europa, and of course, Krupi also has the Europa competition for Europe. So that's what makes these players quite interesting. And of course, this zonal also looks interesting as well. Enzo Fernandez and Szoboszlai and Odango and Ryan. Again, we have already discussed all these players, and rightly so as to why these people have been positioned. Luis Hall, I'm not quite sure because they're really not sure as to what could be, but this could be the last match again for him. only he knows better, but it is. Udogi and Wan-Bissaka, again, both of them are competing for the relegation, so they'll try and be as attacking but as defensive as possible. And of course, it's Harmison who is in the goal. Moving on to the goals conceded, and I think this is the last time that we're doing this for this season. So Burnley seems to be the weakest, as we have already seen. 74 goals conceded so far throughout the 38 matches. Wolves have conceded 67 goals. West Ham 65 goals. Tottenham have 57. So you can rightly see the number of goals being conceded. It's kind of clearly proportional to as to where their position is in the table. Burnley and Wolves have already been relegated. The third team is yet to be determined, whether it's going to be West Ham or whether it's going to be Tottenham. And I think they are also there in terms of the third and the fourth position in terms of the worst goal conceded sides. So yeah, 65 and 57. So this could go down to the wire. Yeah, and of course Leeds, who have already conceded 53 goals but are already safe. So there's nothing much to really focus. Arsenal being the champions, kind of rightly so, only 26 goals considered out of 38 matches. So there's a lot of clean sheet that players have, fantasy managers have gained, having double Arsenal assets, but also having assets like Gabriel, who's also been doing very well in terms of attacking assets, as attacking points. Manchester City ranked second with 33 goals considered, and rightly so. Brighton, on the other hand, has ranked third in terms of the best defensive side, or in terms of the goals conceded, with only just 43 conceded. But again, somehow they managed to draw quite a number of matches, and I think that's where they lost it a little bit. Sunderland, although they have throughout the season, they have shown that they have considered a lot of chances, but they really haven't really considered too many goals accordingly. They are usually the worst side in terms of the chances considered, but not really the worst side in terms of the goals considered. They are the fourth best team in terms of the goals conceded chart. So only 47 goals have been considered by them, despite being the worst in terms of the chances considered. So their chances considered and the goals considered proportional is not quite proportional. So that's something I think it took us a while before we could figure that out. But again, you heard this for in Ghana Football Fantasy Zonal weakness analysis earlier as well. Aston Villa, being the fifth best defensive side with 48 goals, have already been considered. Yeah. So I think that's more or less for this game week. And thank you so much, and thank you for throughout the season for all the support. Thanks to Bethany for joining us for the last 3 years, and doing it on a regular basis. And we'll of course miss her, and we'll try and look for someone else. So if you're interested in joining us for the Ghana Football Fantasy Zonal Weakness recording, or you want to partner with us on this particular show, then please do reach out to us, and we'll be happy to respond and try and figure out a modality under which we could actually do this in a more collaborative manner. But enjoy the game week 38, enjoy the break, enjoy the World Cup, of course, and we'll be back again next season. And until then, it's goodbye. Thank you. Bye.